E ngā mana e ngā reo, e ngā mana tāwaka. Kei ngā mana ririki, tēnā koutou katoa. Malo e lelei, talo whalawa, talo hani, kia orana, whakalawha lahi atu, and warm Pacific greetings in the city of the endless summer. Kei te kai whakarite I tēnei rā, kei ngā kai hautu o tō tātou waka, kei ngā kai kōrero katoa o mua, tēnā no koutou katoa. Hei timatanga kōrero māku, hiwa nui, hiwa roa, hiwa pūkenga, hiwa wānanga, hiwa I te rangi. Tēnei te krau o te manawa koronga, tēnei te āwhero o te mana honui, horohia nui tia mai, ngā hua tu āwhiti mātini tini o te tau, puritia e au kia mau te angitu, tāwhia te momoho kia ita, takataka te kōtahi o te kāhui o te rangi, koe a pautoa putanga ki te whai au ki te ao marama, hui e, tai ki e. He paru anō tēnei no te tai rāwhiti. He kai ako kura tuarua, he pia o te uni ana te wehenga rua.
He kai whakahana, he kai whakahoahoa, he whare anō hoki. Ahau.
Kia ora. He mema māua nō nā rōpu e toru, Exa te Whanganui Ātara, Extinction Rebellion Wellington, Exa te Wakahourua, me te reo o ngā tangata, the people speak. Me tā rātou take I tākinai, te runanga mana ririki, ara Citizens Assembly, kia pai ake ai te whakahaeringa o te manapori, ara te democracy. XR, ANZ, XRANS, Aotearoa, New Zealand, as well as XR Global and te reo nā tangata groups that wish that promote doing democracy better. And I'd like to tie into what Laura Efeso and Mike Treen and Mike Joy were saying earlier. The system needs changing. The system does not represent our voices. They misrepresent, as Mike was saying, and the system is broken and needs changing. A key part of their suggestions for better participation in our democracy is the formulation of a citizens' assembly in order to overcome our current fraught democracy and its factionalism. The current ecological, biological crisis and the impending collapse of biodiversity has made rectifying our system's inherent biases, which exacerbate inequality, an urgent priority. We will need the commitment of everyone, and citizens' assemblies are seen as a mechanism to empower the people to make the prominent decisions that affect their lives and that of their community without the interruption of capitalist corporate vested interests in the decision-making processes. Citizens' assemblies are just one part of an overhaul of our democracy, an important one, and takes place in the sphere where all have the right to participate regardless of origin. And this is the process that governs ourselves, and we call it democracy. The objective is to get the participation of our society in its decision-making process so that we can overcome our current nuclear issue and move our society towards more deliberative and participatory democracy practices. Our faith being, and I invoke the premonition abilities of ngā whanua, which Efeso mentioned, that this will naturally move the political discourse toward the long-expected conversation, talanoa, on constitutional transformation based on our country's founding documents and consistent with the recommendations in Mātike Mai. Nō reira ka hoa atu te rākau kōrero ki a Kelly.
Kia ora, Haimana. So At the moment, we're having climate policy conversations in boundaries that are determined by market interests and markets' invested interests rather than by parameters of just and what is actually necessary. If it really was the party with the biggest majority who would win in our electoral cycles, then it would either be first or second every time the party of the people who don't vote. And we can't solve issues of injustice without the people who experience that injustice being in the room. Is just completely an impossibility. So we also can't expect those people to start voting for a system that they don't trust. We urgently need to create an architecture for listening, better trust, better tools, better decisions and better partnership. We've been doing a lot of research in Extinction Rebellion and with Te Reo Ngā Tangata about how a citizens' assembly, how they're being run elsewhere and how they could work, how they could be co-designed in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We don't really have time to go over all of this today, but hopefully we'll have some more information available online soon. And we'd love to talk to anyone about this, really, if you have any questions afterwards. So I'll just say quickly that for us, there are 3 reasons that we are involved in this mahi, and that is because, no, it's not going to be a silver bullet, but nothing is ever going to be perfect. We believe that 1, we must address the climate crisis and it must be just. 2, we must honour te tiriti in our response. And our current government is not doing that, so we have to think outside the hive. And 3, we need to ensure that any work we are doing in the kawanatanga sphere, alongside honouring te tiriti, supports and or can be of use to constitutional transformation. So I was going to try and go through all of this, but I really don't think we have time. So I was going to use a couple of pieces of contemporary art instead to highlight a couple of issues that we've been focused on in Aotearoa. So the tweet underneath just happened to be on the same bit. But I think that we are on the verge of acknowledging that our citizenship is based on a conquest culture of white supremacy, and that has grown up into a colour-coded colonial capitalism which is continuing to exploit resources, people and the natural environment at a completely immoral scale. So this tweet, to me, summarises one complexity in a very clear way that doesn't require a complicated response. We must not continue to entrench the colonial mindset. We're not assuming the details. We're advocating for national and regional assemblies to be co-designed. And we're also advocating for deliberative democracy in our workplaces, institutions, schools and in the built environment. At the moment, we are still using the word assembly as it has some useful connotations, and there's actually a lot going on around the world on citizens' assemblies, most often referred to as citizens' assemblies, including in Indigenous nations, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So assemblies at their heart are really about public education and concurrently social development. So information given to participants can be broadcast very widely and can be very transparent, and it presents a neutral ground as opposed to the existing pro-opposition or political debate that we are familiar with at this point. But that also means that it doesn't fit tidily into a current funding bracket, as probably none of our work here in this room really does. So it's, I kind of feel like it's the same as with the climate crisis. It is cost and privilege, largely alone, which are making politicians and decision makers reluctant to move to more deliberative methods. So we need to find a way to bridge the funding system to reflect the really widespread values of the work that a lot of you are doing and what assemblies could do. Was that a time? 1 minute? Okay. So the difficult thing is convincing the haves to include the have-nots in the room. I don't need to convince any of you, I don't think, why we need to do that. At this point, there are so many of us that we have everything to gain, we've got nothing to lose, we've got increasingly little time. Extinction Rebellion are trying to sound the alarm across the world, and in New Zealand we're also trying to contribute to the decolonisation movement and to move the deliberative democracy into the mainstream. And some suggestions have been given directly to the Climate Commission from Extinction
Minister, Article 1.
Oh, wait, go back. Oh, I'm missing a slide. Sorry. Okay, there's a slide in there that shows Aotearoa Town Hall and Action Station, two of my favourite examples of how politics can be great, and there's really amazing work going on in the deliberative democracy world. Action Station has completely transformed how I feel I can contribute to politics or how I can engage with politics. But yeah, if you're still in any doubt that we need transformational change, I feel nervous about playing this. It's a very short clip, but yeah, this is really shocking and highlights what we need.
Minister, Article 1 of the treaty, what does it say?
Oh, Article 1 on the spot. Ka whangatanga, sorry, excuse me.
Article 2?
Look, tēnā ringatanga, I know the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. I know our obligations.
And just so that Jacinda's not the only one who's singled out.
National MP Judith Collins.
Ka kite.
Oh, well, ka kite to you.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou. Kei te mihi ki ngā kaiwhakahare me ngā ringa hāpai, me ngā tū waiwai o te hui nei. Kia ora.
Tēnā kōrua Haimana.